All right, we're back to Bach chorale analyses. This is BWV 8.6. It's in a key that, or keys that make it so that we see a lot of chords that we don't usually get to spell. So this will be interesting because it will highlight that if you're struggling with spelling chords at a high level, then when we get to more difficult or at least more exotic chords, it'll put strain on your system to keep up or interpret the chords. And that's why, as a first year review, this is really good, where you just have to confirm the spellings of the chords and then find the notes. But we'll go through and do a full analysis. It's also an interesting chorale because this is the first one where the voices don't move all together in blocks as they go along. He has the beginning, like the melody line here, and then the rest of the choir answers with the same lyrics, but in response to that. And so it's a different texture a lot of times, although you can still look at, places and find all the chords and things like that. I have identified all the chords ahead of time because this would take forever if we had to go through chord by chord by chord. So we're going to talk mostly about cadences, keys, analysis, chord function, that kind of thing. But as a first year student, we'd assign part of this to you. Well, we probably have, and you're looking at this and saying, how do I spell this? Where are those notes? I was going to start first by making our little key sandbox. We're in the key of E to start with. There's an E, and these small notes are from the orchestra, right? And we start on an E chord here. We're going to end down at the bottom here on an E chord in the key of E, and that should make us think about, what keys would we likely visit. So if we start in the key of E, right, then we probably have, to make the box that goes +1 sharp and +1 flat, which is the same as taking away a sharp. So that will be B, and that will be A. And then your relative minors are important: C sharp minor, G sharp minor, and F sharp minor. Now, we won't necessarily visit all these keys, but these are the first places that most of the composers from the common practice period would look to before they go out further. And of course, then there's always the modal borrowing to go to E minor. However, usually it's the other way around. If we started in E minor, we might go to E major. We'd certainly end the piece that way. We're going to find here, I think, that Bach is doing this time. Just going to spoil that ahead of time. But you can see how having a knowledge of closely related keys and the relative keys helps us when we go to cadences and things and try and figure out what's going on. So we're going to start off in E, and here's our first cadence right here. And we go E to B. And there's a B7, E. It's definitely like, a half cadence if I'm right there. I guess we'll see. I got to look across here. You have your this kind of, right? And then, so then we go to our 1 chord right there, and then our 5 chord again, right? Did I play that wrong at the beginning? Yeah, I did, sorry. No, I didn't. Yeah, it's fine. Okay. And then half cadence, right? So we can call this a half cadence, and we're definitely puts us in the key of E major right there. I might write the chords in red down here or in the middle. Maybe I'm going to stick in the middle here just because of spacing, but I'm in the key of E major to start right there. Okay, let's look at our next cadence right here. And you'll notice that there's an inclusion of the A sharp here in this next phrase. And if we go F sharp major to B, this is a 5-1 in the key of B. We have changed keys. I'll just play right there so you can hear that, right? So, right, and it goes to here. Feels like position, F sharp chord, root position, and root position here. This is a PAC. I'm just going to do the new analysis here, so that, and in the middle, which means that we have to think of ourselves in the key of B, maybe at the beginning, maybe somewhere in here. When we get to analysis, we'll check that out. Okay. And then here we have, now this is getting deep in the weeds, and I'm glad that we've seen this already up top for the keys that we're in, but down here in this area, you got like a C sharp minor, and then a D sharp half diminished, and then a G major. There's this right there. And there's two possibilities if we stay within our sort of programming here. One is that we're in G sharp minor and we've done a Picardy third right here, okay? Or we're in the key of C sharp minor and this is a half cadence. And it's gonna end up being that. It's gonna be a half cadence. So let me explain why, because we can reason this through with chord theory. If you have an authentic cadence, well, if you have a half cadence, you're going to end up on your 5 chord, and the 5 chord will be major, and that happens in C sharp minor by adding the harmonic minor 7th raised right there, okay? And it's not just because we have C sharp minors here, sorry, that it's that. But if this was a 1 chord Picardy third right here, right, and we were in the key of G sharp minor, and we just modally borrowed this, then we would expect this to be a 5 chord right here. And it is a 5th above D sharp going to G sharp, but this would be a dominant chord then, not a half diminished, right? So it could be a 7 chord, which would be like an F double sharp chord coming here, but it's not. This clearly feels like a 2 chord going to a 5 chord. When I play it for you, I'll just make sure I line up all these notes correctly. I'm here and here and here, and the A natural, and this, right? That's a half diminished chord, right? And it comes to here, and it, you know, it just feels like a half cadence because of that, right? So, yeah, this is the wrong chord to tonicize that because of the quality. Right? Quality should be dominant, right? So this is going to be a half cadence, and somewhere here we're going to have to have gone to the key of C sharp minor. Don't know if it's right away or if we have a pivot chord later on, but we'll check for that. Okay, here the A sharp comes back, right? 4 sharps plus 1 sharp more is 5 sharps, and we're in the key of B. And you can even see this is like this is a B chord right here, and then F sharp chord before it, and even the B chord over the F sharp right there, like a 1 6 4. So this is actually like a 1 6 4 5 1. I should have maybe been putting these chord symbols in ahead of time. That's my 5 chord, right? This is my 2 half diminished 7 right there, except it's in 6/5 inversion. Okay. And remember that these right here are combined to make the best 5 chord cadence you could think of. So we're back in the key of B, right? Bach does this initial statement where it says, I'm in the key of A, half cadence, I modulate, now I'm in the key of B. Now he's going to move around a little bit here and there, right? It looks like he's sort of noodling between C sharp minor and B major, right? Eventually he'll come back to the E major again, right? So if we look at this next cadence right here, there's a C sharp minor, there's my G sharp major, and you're going, where's my sharp? It's over here, right there, right? This is another authentic cadence. Oh, by the way, this was perfect authentic cadence, right? There. Because root position 5 chord, root position 1 chord, root on top. Okay, here we have my 1 chord. Looks like we've gone back to the key of C sharp minor, 5 1, right? We're going to talk about this. This is filled with lots of interesting chords we almost never get to spell, like B sharp diminished 7 F double sharp diminished 7. Even some people will have issues with the D sharp half diminished 7, those kind of things. So this is going to be great, but this is 5, this is 1, and I'm in the key of C sharp, and this is another PAC right there. So somewhere here I went back to C sharp minor. Again, it might not be right away. We'll have to take a look. Okay, and then, well, what happens? This travels for a while, but when we get back here, we have B and E right at the end. Oh, I can't see it maybe because camera. Yeah, B and E. This is my 5 chord. This is my 1 chord. This is my root position, root position, root position, PAC at the end, right? So, you know, we could draw these. I think I will on the side. Phrase 1, we're going to be in the key of E, and we have a half cadence. Phrase 2, we're going to be changing to the key of B, and we're going to have a perfect authentic cadence. And then we have a repeat signs right there. Right? Oh, there we go. And then we go C sharp minor. This is phrase 3. We get a half cadence right there. And then we go back to the key of B. We get phrase 4, and we have a PAC right there. And then we have back to the key of C sharp minor. That's phrase 5, and we have a PAC right there. And then the last phrase right here takes us back to the key of E. That's phrase 6, and it's a PAC. Okay. So, you know, we can see that this has been a useful tool for us. All right. Well, that's 12 minutes getting into this. And what I think I'm going to do is I will probably just, we're going to do this to right here. And then we'll make a new video and break it up to here, just so it's indexed for people. Some people will want to see what's going on here and cut in at certain places. But let's just try this out. Okay, so let's go quickly, maybe. So my 1 chord, it's all E, G sharps, and Bs, right? And there's, you know, the bass plays here the E, and I'm just going to call this a 1 in root position because this root position there, and the orchestra plays that there. Normally I'm going to ignore these little notes, but to start off with, okay? A major is my 4 chord. It's in root position, right? Back to my 1 chord, okay? This is my 2 chord. We're setting up for a cadence here, 2. And then here's my 5. It's got the 3rd in the bass right there. This is holding over, right? So this is a 7th chord. You can see the 7th right there as well. There's a 5 with the 7th, with the 3rd in the bass is a 6-5 right there. And then a 1, and then a 5. It's pretty standard. There's a few non-chord tones, like there's a suspension that holds over there and a suspension that holds over there. But Bach is making his first statement, you know, pretty sort of like, here I am, without getting too complicated, okay? Then in the second one, we know we're headed to the key of B. I'm going to build backwards from the cadence, and we're going to find either that it works all the way to the back or the front end of the phrase. And if that's the case, we can just say we're in B, or we're going to find that it works really well up to a certain point, and then we have a pivot chord, right? Like, I think we would hear this as a 1 in the original key of E, just because that's all we've had for information here so far. But do we pivot immediately? Let's take a look. This is my B chord again, right here, right? So that's another 5 chord. Even though it's in root position, he does a great job of making it feel cloudy, because cloudy is not the right word, but not as stable, and pushing forwards, because he puts an encore tone right on there. So when we come from the F sharp 7, which is, I'm sorry, not 5, my 1 chord. My 1 chord. This is my 5 chord. I've changed keys. Got to be thinking the new key. Even when he arrives here, so he's got a 5-7 in the key of B right there. I'll play that. Let's see. The 5-7 is in 3rd inversion, right? So that E makes it unstable, right? And then when it comes comes to the actual B chord that it's resolving into, you can hear that the C sharp undercuts that arrival, right? And there, right? And he holds these over. You could make a case that this is where the F sharp chord starts, and these are just common tone and suspension, right? So then even that is undercut because of the suspension and the lower neighbor tone right there, and then finally to that, right? Okay, so these are all, you know, the 5, third in the bass, sorry, 7th in the bass right there, so 5-2. This is a 1, but even though it's in root position, that non-chord tone thing there, this is my 5 chord. It's probably actually right there, but have suspension there, which is again undercutting things, so you get more catharsis on the cadence right there. Okay, and then this would be my 2 chord in the key of B, C sharp minor. This would be my 4 chord. I guess we're just gonna go that equals 4, because we definitely would hear this as a 1 coming off of the previous phrase, but then immediately it goes to the 2 chord. You could call this your pivot chord if you wanted to, 6 equals 2, if you like. And then this is in the key for sure, right there. Okay? Where are we at time-wise? 16 minutes? I guess we're just gonna press on. I thought maybe we'd do 2 videos, but it's probably fine. Okay, similarly here, I think we're gonna build backwards from the end of the phrase here that's a half cadence in C sharp minor and see how far it goes back and stuff. So we already know that this raised here makes it major, which makes it a 5 chord. It's in root position. The 2 half diminished 6, if I'm in the key of C sharp minor, D sharp is 2, half diminished is the quality of the chord. Let's just check that out. It's got a D sharp and an F sharp and an F sharp and an A, and the half diminished is the C sharp right there. I know they're grace notes, and they're passing tones, but they still count. They get played. You hear them, right? And then I have another, while if I'm in the key of, this would be 1, yes, 1 right there, and it's first inversion, 1-6, C sharp, right? It's got a C sharp holding over, and then an E sharp, and then a G sharp right there, okay? I'm just gonna point out that this is also right there. C sharp, E, C sharp, G sharp, right? And you could look at this as being just incidental, like non-chord tones, except, you know, we do leap all the way up here. And so this is, I've circled this originally because we have an instance of cross voicing where Bach's taking one line above the other. It's above the alto. This note right there is there, like that. And that makes another D sharp diminished, half diminished 7. So you can either read it as incidental and it's just coincidental, or he's going like, here I go 1 chord, now I'm gonna go 2, get ready for the 5 chord, now I'm gonna go 1 chord, now I'm gonna go 2 and 5. You know, sort of stutter steps there. Either way, okay? And then here we have what's gonna be a G sharp dominant 7. It's got a G sharp, and you got your D sharps and an F sharp. It's missing the 3rd. So it is gonna be a 5 chord in the key that we're in. He just doesn't tip his hat until the very end, right? He purposefully omits the 3rd there so that when you come from here, I'll just play this for you. You think you're in the key of B, right? And you know, you get this, right? And then all of a sudden you get the A natural, and it's like, nope, we're not in that key anymore. We're definitely back into E major or C sharp minor, and then we get the plain old, there's my C sharp minor. Definitely feels like I'm in the key of C sharp minor, but it's still subtle and undercut because on the next chord right here, you're not gonna get the full, you know, right? You don't get this extra note in here. No 3rd, right? He's not revealing that yet until we get to the cadence, and then we go over the, you know, into the next one. We get another C sharp minor chord, right? But he's tipped his hat here because this is just unique, and he's going to be using that, right, to get to here. So this is a 5 chord. 5th is in the bass, so 4-3. I'm in the key of C sharp minor, right? This is my 4 chord right there, key of C sharp minor, and you know, this would be like subtonic 7. So you can go 1 equals subtonic 7, and 7 likes the, you know, these are like a 4th apart. Or you could say, yeah, no, I think so, because this is a minor 5. You hear the change immediately right there. Okay, cool. All right, going on. And then he's going to say, only kidding, half cadence. We're not really confirming C sharp minor yet. Let's go back to the key of B, right? It's like he's trying little, like floating little trial balloons out to see what it's like. He's hedging his way incrementally there. But this is a 1-6-4-5-1 cadence. It's a great sound. It definitely reaffirms the key, right? So we're right, and then reach way down, and then our, you know, this. Okay. So this is also a B chord right here. So this is my 1. I'm thinking in the key of B now. 1-6. This passing note, right? They're not things. This is a 5 in this key, right? This is my note that's holding over, and that's the 5-2. So again, undercut at the beginning, right? And then, you know, well, how does this all fit? This is my C sharp chord that would come after the 5 would be the 1. But so you can say, well, it was 1, right? But now it's in 1-6 to boot, equals in this key 2-6, right? All right. Yeah, and I don't know how important this is right here, but if you also, just like we did on these ones, take the in between the beats, this is an E major 7, again, flaunting the sort of B, you know, as opposed to the B sharp, telling us we're no longer probably in that key. And so, you know, you can call this a 4 chord, I guess, right? 4 major 7. I'm not sure how important that is. Okay. Good. All right. But then he says, no. We're actually going to commit to the key of C sharp minor. And we get some interesting chords here. And I love seeing this because in my classes, you know, you have to spell every chord. I have that as a end of term test to be able to spell every 7th chord in existence. And we will get B sharp diminished and F double sharp diminished, and we have to do it timed. And sometimes, you know, I think a student could rightly say, like, when am I ever going to see this? And it's like, well, right here happens, right? So let's think our way through this for a minute. I'm going to go backwards again through here. It's a strategy that we do sometimes when we know that we're going to be changing key because of cadences, and when's that going to happen, right? But let's think our way through this for a minute. What is that? F sharp diminished 7. Before we even spell it, I just want you to remember that 7 diminished chords are almost exclusively always 7 chords in minor keys, right? But they get modally borrowed into major keys as well, right? And if F sharp double sharp is 7, scale degree raised 7 is leading tone, then you go up a half step. So if you're keyboard centric and you can't see that as anything other than a G, let's just think about this for a minute. If this was an F sharp, then a half step up would be a G. So if this is F double sharp, then a half step up would be G sharp, and that's my 5 chord here. So this is really cool. This is 7, root in the bass, diminished 7 of my 5 chord, and that's for second year students, right? So we're really leaning in hard to the key of C sharp minor by tonicizing or doing an applaud, you know, diminished chord to the 5 chord right there. And this B sharp is holding all the way through, so it is a major chord 5 position like that right there. You can find it here briefly, G sharp, D sharp, G sharp, and B sharp right here as well, right? And if you ask yourself, well, what's with this one right here? Well, let's just think about this for a minute. if B sharp is a diminished 7 chord here, and this is leading tone 7, because diminished 7 chords are almost exclusively 7s, then just think about this for a minute. B going up a half step to the tonic would be C, so B sharp is going to take us to C sharp, and that's our 1 chord. This is my 7 chord for the key right here. So 7 diminished, and the A, right, is in the bass, so that's a 2 right there, right? And remember that 7 diminished and 5s are substitutes for each other, so he's wandering his way down through there. It's a great cadence. Let's see if I can butcher my way through some of these things. So I've got a B sharp and an F sharp there, and then I've got my A and my D right there. So here, right? And then these guys wander up to the G sharps, right, which makes it be a 5 chord. It's a G sharp dominant chord right there. Or sorry, there's no F sharp anymore. Just a triad, right? And then we get to our diminished 7, right? Which then goes into the G sharp chord, but because the C sharp is suspended over top, you still get this sort of delayed, beautiful cadence. And then finally down to the B sharp, right? And then we get our full cadence right there, which is kind of great to finally have at the end. Like that. Okay? Nice. Okay. Let's keep going then backwards. That's my 1 chord, right? I'm in the key of C sharp. Oh, sorry. That's root position 1 chord, right? And then E would be 6. Yes? No, 3. It would be 3, sorry, right? Okay. And this is a B chord, and we've just come off of B being the 1 chord, but do you see this A natural that shows up right there? Changes my B major chord into a B dominant chord. So this starts off as B, and you can say, well, 1, in this case 6, if you really want to be thinking about that, equals subtonic 7, 6 in the key of C sharp minor, right? And then you can go, well, this is a subtonic, you know, there. And remember that subtonic is the dominant of the relative major. So it's kind of like saying, psych, we're going to the relative major again, because, you know, it's like that's where we expect it to go. He says, well, I'm deviating into the key of C sharp minor, half cadence, but then I'm coming back to B, and now I'm turning this into a dominant, which pushes us back to E. You're going to feel this like a 5-1, you know, thing. It's like you're psychologically, you'll be saying, I'm going back to the key of E. So I start right there. It's kind of a 5 sound, right? And there's my bass note right there, right? And then I put in the rest of the chord, and this is reminiscent of the beginning of the piece, right? And that A natural says, oh, we're going back to the key of E. And there's nothing to make us suspect differently yet. That would be like a 6 chord, but then all of a sudden we get this, and the B sharp tells us we're in the key of C sharp minor, right? So, and then we get our diminished of 5 right there, right? Right? And then we finally get our 5 chord with the suspension, right? So, there, and then resolution to there. This is beautiful. It's not just the architecture of the chords itself, it's the way that he executes that. You know, like, it's like you think you're in E and then the 6, and then all of a sudden this says, wait a second, that can't be right. And then instead of just going to the 5 and then going to the 1, he throws another wrench in it by putting the 7 of the 5 in front of it there. It's really great. And, you know, the execution's wonderful. Even here, putting this as the lowest note being the 7th of the chord, right? All of those things really, really help give a delay and a sort of obfuscation of what's going on. It's not totally obvious to our ears, right? Even though we can use our theory to see that. Okay. That's last phrase. Well, let's go backwards from here. We know we're going to end in E, right? There's my 5, there's my 1, right? And A sharp diminished 7. Again, diminished 7s are 7 chords usually, right? So if you say, well, A sharp goes up, if this is leading tone or 7th degree, if it's T, like T do, then it goes to B. This is 7 of the B. So this is 7 diminished 7, and the A sharp is in the bass, so that's fine, of the 5 chord. We're temporarily tonicizing or making a big deal out of the 5 chord. And you know, he did it here too. So it's nice that he's sort of saying, that was a great trick, let's not throw it away, let's do it again, right there. And then you've got your B7 here, but again, it's a 5 chord with, because this is holding over 7 on the bass. So he's making this great line that goes, bum, 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 right there, right? So if we play from here, actually maybe we'll back up even more. We have our 1 chord right there. And then it's a D sharp diminished 7. There's my D sharp, there's my F sharp, there's my A, and there's my C. And you say, well, what is that, right? Well, it's the 7 diminished chord of E, right? So it's 7 diminished in this key, but it's from the minor, it's modally borrowed, but he's playing with this sound right here. So the A is in the bass, so 7 diminished 4, 3. And it's not the normal one for the key, it's modally borrowed. And so if we hear this is going 1, 7, switch it to the 5, then same thing here, right? The diminished of the 5, the diminished of the 5, and then we cadence. It's this trick that he's had before that he's going to do for us again here. So I'm going to play from here. I've got my E chord right there, like this, and we get the suspension. And then we get an interesting sound. It's a 7 chord, but because it's got the C natural, it's got, or the, yeah, it's like a fully diminished. It's like from the minor, right? Which is this beautiful kind of sound. And then we go to our 5 chord, but the 5 chord sound is thwarted a little bit because we have that A still in the bass. It's the 7th of the chord, making it the most unstable, right? And now he's gonna kick into the diminished of 5, right? So good. And then he'll get our 5 chord finally, right? And our 5 chord here is diminished, is delayed because of that suspension going there, which we saw earlier as well, right? Like here at the very top, he delays the arrival of the 5 chord by putting suspension. So I don't think that it's anything other than intentional. Bach was really like one of the quintessential composers of, like when you see his fugues and things like that, the entirety of the fugue can be built out of the subject. It's like he's showing you in his first thing right here, kind of most of the tricks or most of the games. He does that with his first 4 measures of his preludes and things too. He says, here's what I'm about, right? And he influences other composers that way too. So that he had this up here as a, 5-1, but with the suspension coming over, and that he does it down here is not anything other than a glorious expectation fulfilled, right? That he does the delay of things by having the 7th in the bass on the, the chord here, and kind of does that here, right? And then he puts the diminished 7 of the 5 before he goes to the 5. That's, it's really wonderful reusage, right? Okay, B7, right? It's got a B holding over a D sharp F A. This is my 5, and 3rds in the bass, 6, 5. E. Now, it's kind of interesting. If you think this is the chord tone, then we have a G sharp minor. But if you just resolve it, it makes an E, which is much more plausible, right? Because we're in the key of E, and we're trying to establish that. And I think this is just an encore tone that's delayed right there. I put it up there because, but I think it's just a 1/6. Makes sense from a chord progression point of view. Also, it shows him putting on the beat dissonances like he's been doing with his unstable chords or suspensions and things like that. It's consistent, It's part of the sound that propels you forward, because every time you get one of these affirming chords, it's still got something about it that's slightly off because of inversion or non-chord tones on the beats, right? It makes you trip forward looking for more resolution, okay? This is an A chord right here at the beginning, right, which is my 4, okay? And if you want to, you can ignore this right there, and it's just still the 4 all the way. It's just, it goes to 4, 6 because of the inversion right there, right? If you want that in there, then you can, you could say it goes to a 6 there. I don't know that that's really important. I think probably it's just doing this. He leaps in to that note there. It's an appoggiatura, okay? And then coming back to the beginning of the phrase here, E7 is my 5 and thirds in the bass, 6, 5. It's dominant form, not tonic form, so it's a 4, which is the chord that's coming up down here next, right? And I think this is part of the thing where he's saying, like, we have this strong cadence here in C sharp minor. This here intimates a 7 diminished sound right there, going back to there again. And he has to break this cycle. And one of the ways you can do that is by introducing, new scalar and chord progressions from the new key you're going to. And another way you can do it is just to use tonicization of local chords, because that's temporarily making you feel like you're in a different key. It breaks the hold of the old key there. So I think probably at this point we go 1 equals 6, right? And then it goes 5 of 4 to 4, and then we have our cadence and stuff to the end, right? Hopefully you understand this. I guess we could spell these out, but I'll leave that to you to do. How do we spell out complex chords like this, where it's hard to visualize this without more practice? You just start with the one you know. Like if you go F sharp, A, C, E flat is a diminished 7, right? On F sharp, then I just sharp everything again, right? And that cancels out, and that gets me my notes, right? When we learn chords, whether they're music majors or non-music majors in the courses we teach at our college here, we just start with some basic things like BDF, ACE, GBD, and we learn that this is major, and this is diminished, and this is minor, and then we learn how to modify them, like lower the third. Most people get this raise the fifth. I'm going to make these all minor now, right? But if we wanted to do a complex one, like, let's do G double sharp minor. It's not a chord that really exists, but we'll just pretend it does, okay? Well, you go GBD, and you say that's major, right? You lower the third, that makes it minor, and then you just double sharp everything, right? You shift it, and then 1 flat plus 2 sharps equals 1 sharp, right? So we go from something easy always and be consistent, and then process it, and you can do the same thing for these other things there, okay? This is such a great chorale for many reasons, but I especially love his consistent use of inversions and secondary diminished chords and things, and then non-chord tones on the beat to delay the harmonic sort of satisfying or gratification of these changes of keys. He waits until the cadence to give you something that is solid, right? And he obfuscates that with these delaying tactics all the way through. It's a great writing technique that's important to learn as a composer. Different composers do this in different ways. Bach is a master of using inversions and using non-chord tones to sort of make them stumble through their progressions without ever sounding too, we've landed. He only waits and does that at the very end of the cadences. Haydn is a composer, certainly could do that too, but he was particularly masterful of knowing when in his melodies to be away from the half steps in the scale, And so he will melody himself around the whole steps and around stable intervals and things. But then as he wants to progress through and gain momentum, then he'll lean into the half steps of the scale from 4-3 or 7-1, or he'll add some secondary applied dominance of some kind. And that sort of does the same thing. These are people that know their timing and know what they're about, and they use devices for that. All right. Until number 9, I guess.